So we're here once again on the Upper West Side of Manhattan in Lenore Heck's studio, and it's June 27th, 1999. And today we have the opportunity to be with Ruth Veselko from Switzerland, and I'm just so very happy that you're willing to do this interview in your not native language of English. And believe me, I'm relieved, because my German is very limited and my Swiss German doesn't exist. So you began working with Heinrich Jacoby in 1941, and I'm wondering if you could tell a little bit of the circumstances of that beginning time, and what led you to believe that this was a work for you?
I saw an announcement from a course from Jacoby. It has to do with mothers, and the question was, what can mothers do that their children become gifted or ungifted? And I had no idea what this man would talk about, but I was interested more in my own education. I didn't have children. So I went there, and he presented his work with experimenting, with talking, with explaining, with picture, ideas, and so forth. And already his voice and his being present was a big impression for me. And he already asked us strange things to do, as closing the eyes. In this time, nobody would ask us such a thing. And to feel how we are sitting, how we are, I believe, breathing. I can't remember, but I think so. And he reported from his research about people who think they are ungifted in music. He started with people in music, because he studied music, and to be a director from orchestra and theater. And he was very impressed, and it was his big question why people, actors, can act one day very well and the other not so good. And why there are people who think they are ungifted in music. And this question was his main theme afterwards, and he tried to find out the cause of this behavior. And to direct a rehearsal,
Yes.
he found out that it was very important how the director treated the people, the actors or the musicians. When the director becomes very unquiet, very restless, very nervous, and shouted to the people, they couldn't work better. And that was one big insight for him, that how you be with other people's, it gives you a reaction the same way as a mirror, like a mirror. And he was studying music with Hans Pfitzner in Strasbourg. He was then 18 years old when he started to study music. And Hans Pfitzner was for him such a big model.
Yes.
And makes him demanding to get a very high level about music. And he worked about 5 years, I believe, with Hans Pfitzner. And I'm not sure, but this question about being gifted and ungifted followed him. He was invited to work with Jacques Dalcroze afterwards. That was a musician and dancer. And even there, he wasn't satisfied how they went on with the education of music. He left and worked for himself, gave courses, and mostly with people who thought they were ungifted in music. And he has had about 100 people. He could work with them and brought them in a condition that they couldn't say anymore. They couldn't sing or play music. And I don't know if I have to tell so much about Jacoby.
Well, we fortunately have this information in the bulletin on Heinrich Jacoby, but it's also good to hear you speak of it. But I'm wondering if you could also say more of what your own experience was.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm immediately thinking about the light and dark experiments that you did, and the picture of Beethoven's death mask that you made. I'm wondering if you could just, because this is a personal example of something that you didn't know you could do, and you found out you could.
That was years later, after the introduction course, and following his weekly courses in the evening. He asked us to do these light and dark experiments at home. And first we had to do very, very simple things to make also a how do you say, scale.
Yes.
from white to black. It's not so easy to do. to make these differences from these different gray until you can do it.
Shades of gray.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And also it was difficult with the light. We couldn't work on the days on the day. We had to work at night or arrange the light that it would be always the same. Light from up, that it doesn't give so much shade.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start perhaps with a banana or with a vase,
Mm-hmm.
without color or much color, and you start somewhere. No, you have first to make the background. You couldn't let it white as the paper was. You had to feel out the relation from this object to the paper and to the surroundings. And to do this with, what is watte? With
Charcoal?
Chalk, yes,
Yeah.
powder,
Yeah.
and something you put, and then you leave it on the
Right.
paper.
You scrape the charcoal so it's a dust, and then
Yeah.
you use some
Yeah.
sort of cloth to.
You have to try out it by yourself what's
Mhm.
the best. Sometimes he gives a rod, what is
A
a
little
little
yeah,
help.
Yeah.
And then you start with the object, darker or more light, and to correct, you had a gum or even from breadcrumbs to take color away. And but it was even more important to feel your condition in doing it. If you can be a little quiet or become a little quiet in doing it, because it changes your view when you are more quiet, more or less quiet. And so you had to bring it in class to show it and to tell what happens about, what you feel about. And he didn't say much. Of course, he didn't say it's good or bad. That wasn't the question. The question was how you are seeing, how you are looking, watching. And the other brought their picture too. And so we gave a report how we did it, and so we could learn from each other.
Mm-hmm. So that part of the way that he was in working with you is that you had projects at home that you worked with and felt your condition as you were working with the project.
Mm-hmm. And also to choose the object was not given. We have to choose ourselves and find out what is better, what is more difficult to do. Then it was included.
Mm-hmm. I would like to show, if that's okay with you,
Mm-hmm.
this mask that she did of, where, is that okay. the mask of, the death mask of Beethoven. That's the one that she, this way? Whoops. Okay. So the first course that you went to was designed for mothers and how they were with children.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, you were interested in your own education, and you were interested in how he spoke of the questions you had about your own education. Is that right? He spoke about how people were with children,
Mm-hmm.
not only parents and teachers, but all adults, how they are with children.
Yes, but it was also that adults could change her behavior and her being, because you are always, in a way, an educator for other people, and your influence, your being influences other people. But at this time I didn't think about that. It was only afterwards I noticed that. And but in his first course, when Jacoby showed us the dias and pictures
Mm-hmm.
from children, how children behave and how they are very present when they move or play or drink or eat. And he shows also other children who hadn't the chance to be in such a quiet circumstance. That was very impressive. And then he showed us pictures about handicapped people who worked with her feet. The Untan, who played violin with his feet. And then he asked, do you think that these people are gifted to have such feet that they can work with their feet? And asked what is behind this behavior from these handicapped people, that they are so able to do what other people can't do. And that view that we are born with so much possibilities and abilities, and the way you were educated makes such a big influence. That was this time for me very contrary what I was thinking.
Uh-huh.
I believed that there were gifted and ungifted people. It was one thing which changed my whole thinking. I couldn't say anymore, I can't do this when I haven't tried it out.
And you saw results of working with him in your own working life.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
After this course, I had to go to an introduction course. The first was only 3 or 4 days.
Right.
And when I worked in Zurich, I had the chance to follow this introduction course, 24 evenings to 3 hours. And that was then the continuing and the working out what he wanted to tell us and what he wanted us to try out. And perhaps another thing what impressed me so much was he telling that you can't separate body, mind. That we are all one. Mind influences body, body influences mind, and you can't separate them. That was also very new for me. Or to work with a sandbag, with gravity. At the beginning I couldn't feel anything. I didn't know what should happen. Mm-hmm. Only with the time I had more feeling and more sensing. In spite of, in my work, I could try out this. I worked in a shop. Had the whole time move things around, bring to the people. Then there was not yet
self-service.
Self-service, yes. As a seller, you had to bring things on the table, and I tried then to get in contact with these things. I had to move as much as I could. Or we had also big things to bring, to transport with fruits or bottles or like that. And that was very heavy. And that gave also a chance to try out and not to damage my body so much.
Well, this may be a time to ask you about task. What do you want from me? Is that an example of it? If you had a big bundle of cloth, to
yes, yeah.
How to be ready, how to be with it, and how to take it from one place to another and present it to the person who is going to be perhaps buying it?
Yes, but at the beginning I wasn't so conscious about this question.
Uh-huh.
Of course I had to react to these heavy things,
right,
and feel out and to stand, to have a contact with the earth. But I think even if I did it not so perfect, it was had very much influence of my being in being more, having more trust in myself, having more courage to try out new things, having more courage to be how I was, not to think so much what other people think about. Of course, that was, I couldn't do so things extraordinary, but not always the same as other people did.
Mm-hmm.
yes, with the year, I became more and more sensitive and more connection with the other tasks. And of course, each evening I was there with Jacoby. That was full of interesting things he told us and what we have to experience in standing or lying or seeing. Yes, and now I remember the other thing which impressed me so much was that our sense organs function like antenna-like. That was also something unbelievable for me then in this time, that it doesn't help you when you strengthen your eyes, when you strengthen your ears, or what else you could do, that would be more disturbing than helping to function better. That you can let something come to your eyes inside you, and you can feel what comes to you, or you hear things without giving extra attention as you hear the car, it comes to you. And the question to become quiet for this being antenna-like. At the beginning I couldn't follow what that meant. That needed also a lot of time. But when I spent an evening there in the course, also in later time, it happens that 2 or 3 days afterwards, I was in another condition until that flowed and diminished again. And so I had much more fun in living.
This seems like a good time for me to read some of your words. I asked you before if you would read them or should I. And this also is from the bulletin, the Jacoby bulletin from the foundation. You say, "We often suffer when we are restless and nervous and are bad company. We are unable really to do anything, can't even thread a needle. We would like to quiet down, but how? For a long time it was incomprehensible for me that quiet in itself does not exist. It was always my goal, and as such, unreachable, unattainable. I think I've now experienced how quiet can arise when I'm able to limit myself to one thing and thus come into real contact with it, instead of wanting many different things at the same time, and thus being innerly at odds with myself. This kind of quiet is not lifeless, not empty, but full of life, made possible by the reciprocal play of forces. It is not a constant state, as I so often long for, but one that has to be reached anew, again and again. I imagine it now to be like a pair of scales, the weights being constantly changed so that it has to be newly balanced over and over again. So it is a matter of how we take on and respond to every new weight, from inside and from outside. How delicately we balance our scales and keep them functioning.
I can't remember.
Well, isn't it wonderful that it's written down? You know, but that for me too, finding quiet in relation to where I am as I am. Well, there's so much I want to ask. So soon we're going to leave Jacoby. And not that his influence doesn't continue in you, but there are other things I want to ask you about. But is there anything about him as a person that you'd like to mention? His impact on you.
He was very peaceful, and he never pushed someone, sometimes a little, but not, I never had the feeling I had to do more than I can. And he once said, I only can be, I can have such patience, because I knew how much is demanded to get in this condition, because he had to work out by himself. That was he was teaching. And the atmosphere was pleasant, and often we had to laugh. He was full of humor. And what he told about, I had the feeling that was really experienced by himself, or not about other people who talked, and he told about this question. So I trusted him so much. I never had critical thoughts about, and perhaps that was also a help. And he reported that in his 60s he could do things. He was movable more than before.
Please give us an example.
He didn't show very much what he could do, but he could sit on the floor cross-legged, push his hand on the floor, and could wave between his arms.
He could swing his torso back and forth.
Yeah, that was one thing he did, but he wouldn't show us what he can do. Sometimes he told, but he wouldn't be a model.
I see.
To follow.
You also worked with Ilse Gindler, but for a shorter period of time.
Yeah. 3 years, 3 weeks. Each year, 3 weeks. That was their last years of her life. And I could go to her classes because I was with Jacoby so long. I didn't have I didn't need an introduction course with her. I could go without. And for me, it was not so much different from what we did with Jacoby. She uses almost the same words, the same, how you say, Begriff, notes.
Mm-hmm.
But she told about her own experience from the work in her living. That was, of course, different from Jacoby.
Could you give an example? Does anything come to mind of what she did speak of?
An experiment came to my mind now. We had to do a daily work in the course. We had to clean the floor, we had to clean windows, or we had to clean a show,
Mm-hmm.
and to try out to feel how we do it normally, like this. And if we can change our condition in doing, not to stay there and become quiet first, but in working to become more acceptable, more reactive and more appropriate to do what we are doing.
Mm-hmm.
Or walking somewhere, and or lying down. And she had such a feeling to notice if I was really present or not in doing it. She said, you cleaned the room, but you weren't present for the work. And what you are doing, the result is different when you are present in working or not. It looks different afterwards. That was a help too.
Attitude. The attitude
Yeah.
with which one does something.
Mm-hmm.
You also worked with Ruth Veselko for a number of years.
Mm-hmm. After Jacoby died,
Mm-hmm.
she needed a year to have enough courage to work with us afterwards. But that was a big help to work without Jacoby. Ruth Mother didn't teach. She offered an experiment, or we could choose an experiment and tell about. We didn't tell so much, but we worked in spite of. And sometimes she reminds us on the essential, what we are working of, the essential behavior. And so, without Jacoby, we had to be more selbstständig, self-standing.
Yeah, independent.
Independent, yes.
Mm-hmm. Self-sufficient, maybe
Yeah.
is the
Mm-hmm.
other word. Yeah.
But yes, I liked very much that we had this opportunity to go there. And Jacoby's work impressed me so much. I couldn't think anymore in another way. it was always Jacoby's word and Jacoby's thinking I was full of. And yeah, in a way that was nice, in a way I didn't work out it by myself.
Mm-hmm.
I had to wait some other years until I noticed that I should try to work it out by myself, not only to believe and to copy.
And can you say something of how that's been for you, working it out by yourself?
When we had the book from Being Gifted and Ungifted, which Sophie Ludwig edited, that was a big help to have it written.
Mm-hmm.
And to be remembered of things I wouldn't have remembered without the book, perhaps. And I tried then to make notes about what was most important for me, and or what I didn't not yet understand, and tried to read it again and again, and to try to bring it to work out in my life.
Mm-hmm.
As good as I could.
And this book that you refer to was the actual records of classes that he had given. Is that right?
The book?
The Ungifted and...
Yes, it was... Jacoby prepared some of this book.
Mm-hmm.
But it was so big that after his death, Sophie Ludwig tried to find an editor or a publisher, and nobody would like to have this book, to publish it. And so she had to diminish it, to make it smaller. It was 1,000 pages, and she made afterwards 500. And she did it with help from Ruth Veselko. And it was then, in a way, her choice what to bring out and what to left out.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, it was a big help. Because we knew the circumstances, and we could we knew more about in which circumstances he talked about.
So the book that you've been speaking of is actually selected and edited transcripts from his introductory course.
Mm-hmm.
And you and Mary Alice Roche are continuing to explore and investigate his work and how his work worked through you. And maybe you say a little bit about what it is that the two of you have been doing over these years.
That started when I was the first time, no, not the first time, when I came to visit my friends in Providence. I spent a week in New York and went to the Monday night group. That I saw Mary Alice the first time.
And about, when was this? I mean, roughly?
I can't remember, 89 or something like that.
About 10 years ago, something
Yeah,
like that.
I believe. It was a result of the Rotenfels meeting, and Mary Alice, I promised to write a report, and then I couldn't do it, and wrote to her that why I couldn't do it, and to excuse my writing and so forth. And then I got a letter from her. She was pleased about my letter, if she can use it. And so I had a contact with her and liked to see her, and combined my visit. That was more attractive for me to see Mary Alice than my friends.
Ah.
Were not my friends, but it were relatives from my friend. And then the other year, I was with her to visit her at home, and she was working on a bulletin about Hengstenberg to translate and to work about this dark and light project she told about, and I helped something to say what I could, and that was the beginning. And I was so interested. And then, from then I also went to Charlotte, and knew people who worked with her. And I always, when Charlotte spoke, I had always Jacoby's words in my head, and once an evening I was asked to tell about Jacoby, and they were so interested, the people. So I had the idea somebody should translate the Jacoby book in English, but I couldn't speak English. But then we had another occasion in Germany, in a workshop with Charlotte, and I tried to translate something, a report from a course from Sophie Ludwig, and she was interested, and so I got a little more confidence to be able to try it out. And she also was interested to hear more about Jacoby. And we tried the third evening from this Jacoby book, because I found it too difficult to start with the introduction, with the first 2 days, and we had to struggle because she didn't know any German, and I had only a little English. I had to look for the words and to make a sentence which wasn't understandable at the beginning, but we both were so so attracted when she could understand at least what he wanted to say. She was happy then. And even Nancy Beck, who wrote then what we have translated, she also was very fun about each sentence she had to write. And so that was the start. And then I came another year to continue. In spite of having a most critical, how do you say, report from people in Germany or in Switzerland who read our first translation. Of course, it was the beginning.
Yes.
And they found, these two women found it wasn't not at all usable, and we shouldn't do any anymore. We sent it to Sophie Ludwig and Ruth Matter. But they both didn't have so much English knowledge that they gave it to two English teachers who knew the Jacoby word. And because we liked it so much, we continued. And some people here read it. Once we took it to a workshop, and then once we stopped because we had no more time, and it was too difficult. But I learned so much. Then sometimes I couldn't understand the German sentences, so I had to struggle with the German and with the English, and it was a great help.
I can't even remember how many years ago it was that a group of us came together and heard your paper on Verhalten.
Verhalten.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There were German words you can't translate in English.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to make a whole explanation about what is Verhalten, what is Gelassenheit, what is...
Stop right there and take one of those words, because they're words that we hear Charlotte Silver use, and that I would like to hear your definition of one of them, if you would.
Being gelassen perhaps contains being quiet, being ready to let something go, to be there for what comes, and to be open for what comes. And even to be reactive and ready. Readiness was also a word we worked about in all kinds of aspects. Yeah.
So, and now in 1999 you continue to work with Mary Alice, and hopefully in the year 2000 we'll see you again and you will be continuing to work. But you also offer the work that you've been in now for the last 57 years. You offer vacation courses and ongoing classes. I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about how that is for you.
When I retired from my work, I was asked to work with some people. First only like something like gymnastic. They had their teacher became ill, and they were looking for somebody, and I didn't like it. I did it, but I didn't like it. And then it happens that other people asked me to show them the work from Jacoby, and so I tried it. Ruth Matter also encouraged us to work with other people, and I did it as I could, as I understand it. And it was some years. And with the time, I had 2 groups, and also I had a friendship with a woman in Germany, in Berlin, and she asked me to come to visit her and to work with her friends. They started to read the Jacoby book together, but without any exercise, any experiences. And so I showed them something, and they were happy and invited me for the fall. I was there in spring and then in the fall. And so it happens that I was there each year twice. And now it's like a small family, these people who came to meet when I'm there. And we can continue the work. Some of them work too, are offering the work too. From the Goralewski Institute, they were trained in the Goralewski Institute, who was a student of Gindler. And when I was with Sophie Ludwig once in a course, I met a woman from Hamburg, and that happens also to become a friendship, and then I combined it with Berlin, and I gave a workshop also in Hamburg. That was very inspiring for me. And at home, it started when I was once in the mountains for my holiday, and I thought, oh, it must be very wonderful to work, to be able to work here. And 3 or 4 of my friends came, and we worked together for a week, outside, inside, and the next year again. And then we had to change and came to Waltensburg. Where more people had space in the summertime, and they liked it too and wanted to continue. So it happens now, about 8 years, 2 weeks. Sometimes I had 3 times a week, and now I have 2 weeks. And I started also to take a course with the TCI people. That means what Ruth Kohn I don't know how.
Originated,
yes.
And maybe we should, for those people who aren't familiar with Ruth Kohn, She was a psychotherapist who worked with Charlotte Silver for a time.
Mit Charlotte also. Mit Carola Spitz. I know.
Yeah.
I don't know if she worked with Charlotte. Perhaps. But she already in her years she worked in Berlin with a friend of Hengstenberg or like that. Or that then Carola Spitz were there. I'm not sure. But I think this work, Kindler work, impressed her and influenced her work too.
And I think she did write an article on the use of sensory awareness with psychotherapy. So, and she developed this way of working called theme-centered interaction.
But there were only words. And one of these teachers I found for myself very helpful, and I often was in his courses, and then we told each other what we are doing, and mostly they liked to work once or twice in free time with me. And so we got the courage to give a workshop together 2 times. And now his friend in Switzerland asked me to work for his institution he has, and offered the work. He offered several workshops for other people. And it happens that the course was soon filled.
Yes.
And so last year and this year I gave a workshop for these people who were mostly social worker or teachers for handicapped people, and also how do you say, people who work with gymnastic.
Physical education?
Physical education, yes. Yeah. And that was a very good experience to work with them. 4 days, full days.
Can you give us an idea of how it is that you shared the workshop? What it was that you did within this workshop? First, maybe you should say that with theme-centered interaction, there's a theme that is kind of an organizing principle for how you work together. Is that true?
I didn't understand.
Oh. That in the workshop, in this theme-centered living, learning way, that there's a theme that is like an organizing principle of how you work with each other, like cooperation or harmony or...
Yes, it is, yeah. But I could work as I did.
That's what I want to know, is how you worked within this context of a theme.
There were only people from this organization who were invited and has been offered my workshop, and they were very, very interested, of course. Sometimes I didn't know what happens in my course. They heard perhaps something, or they read the invitation, and but they even liked it not to talk so much once. To have the possibility to feel themselves more. Then they talked more than my people do, but and asked more. But it was a good combination.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they didn't talk anything, so I let them.
Could you relate an experiment that you worked on with them?
Of course, I used sandbags.
Oh.
That you never can fail with sandbags. They all love it and are interested. Walking, lying down, speaking once. One of these participants was a teacher to speak, to train people to speak in the radio and TV and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And she asked me to work with speaking. I had a very strange feeling to do it because she was a very good teacher, but it happened. I started first to become alive and in a good tension, and then I let them whistle, or how?
Whistle.
Whistle, yeah. They did it, tried it, and were happy with it. And I asked him to whistle, to call somebody in whistling. And afterwards, I told them to speak a name, their own name or something else, for a while. They did it. And then at the end, they spoke a little sentence, what they are feeling, what they like to spoke. And I also asked them to speak with closed eyes, and then to tell about their experience having the eyes closed in listening and speaking. And there was also a time we used summen, to hum.
Hum? Humming? Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Or make other sounds. And that was also something I like very much. And even this teacher was pleased about this experiment. Yeah. Sometimes we also played with balls, very seriously and very happy, joyful things to make them more free. Yeah. And sometimes we had much laugh. It was a very good week.
And so that goes on.
Yes, we already made for the hotel
reservations.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
For next year. And in 2 or 3 weeks I'm in the mountains again to have my courses. There one day we can work outdoors, we go for a walk in the forest or on a place where we have water or a small hill. We can walk barefoot. Barefoot, yes. And there are trees, and who likes to walk blind.
Yeah, blindfolded?
Blindfolded, yes. Alone or be guided to touch the trees, and that's very nice. People liked it. What I am doing at home, I have another course from Jacoby, typed from
the transcript from the course.
Yeah. And that is really word how he spoke. Each word he spoke is there. And also what people asked and how he answered this question. I try to write it down. I started to do it for myself to become more, even to understand more and more. I wrote this sentence which makes me most touched me most.
Yes.
And then I try also to write down why this sentence touched me, what I make with it in my life, what I understood and didn't understand. And that I tried for. And then I showed it to a friend, and she liked it so much. Most of them what I was writing, because it's nearer their own understanding than what Jacoby said, because Jacoby has such a can't say intellecty sentences, but even in German it's very demanding to understand what is written in the book. And so I dared to give it also other people, and I like it too. So I have 9 days now. Until now, I have worked out.
Could I just interrupt? And I'm wondering if there's something that comes to mind in that 9 days that you've felt through its impact on you. If there's something that you could share with us so that we can feel it.
I brought with me and told Mary Alice about, and of course she wanted to know what is in this. And we started with one day, not the first, the 5th day I believe, and it was a talk in the course about grace, about belief, about trust, and we tried together to understand what Jacoby told about and in which connection this was. And we had very, very interesting talks about. We didn't come further on than this part. because we worked before what we did last year.
Mhm. Well, we could go on and on,
Yeah.
and I'm sure there will be a sequel to this.
Yeah.
But before we close, I'm wondering if there's anything that in your daily life that you
Oh,
feel
yes.
is
It follows me all the day.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine how my life would be without this work. And it starts in the morning with awakening. It was also a task to pay attention how we start the day. We could have an example from the baby, how they stretch and how their eyes open by itself. And we were asked to notice if we open our eyes with an effort or if our eyes opens by itself in the morning. So that was also the question in this work I did. And so I started to make notes about my awakening in the morning. It was very helpful. And to find out if I had a ritual to do this, or if I could improvise my awakening in the morning. And then it's always something you can be with this work. It's no end. That's the beautiful thing, that has no end, to be alive. Perhaps also to show other people what is possible with the work in this age. For many young women, they like it to have seen my experience and to not to have bad feelings to go elder.
to go
Elder. Or
older.
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 Yeah.
Aha. It's a relief then when they see you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well.
I think that's all.
Thank you very much, Ruth.